Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I'm the founder of Food Truck Training Group on Facebook, co-owner with my beautiful wife, Melissa, of our own food truck. It's called Food Truck 101. And I'm the executive director of the National Street Food Vendors Association, which is a nonprofit dedicated to education, advocacy, and uplifting all food vendors. Today, I'm going to be talking about what you can expect when you have that initial food inspection or that health inspection. But before we get into that, I'm going to remind you guys I'm going to be in Orlando, Florida this year on November 12th and 13th. I'm going to be a part of the Food Truck Owners Expo. I'm giving 3 classes. I'm going to be part of a discussion panel, and I'm going to be kicking off each day's campfire sessions. After I'm done with the campfire sessions, I'll be in my association's booth where you guys can sit down and talk to me and ask me even more questions. Again, that's going to be in Orlando, Florida, November 12th and 13th. Go to FTOexpo.com, place your order for those tickets today, and when you do, put in the code FTTG15 for a 15% discount. I want to thank Table Needs for sponsoring this episode of the Food Truck Training Podcast. Table Needs is a full-service POS system capable of handling your busy food truck, cash, credit card, and reporting needs. For more information about Table Needs, there'll be a link in the description. So what should you expect on that very first inspection from your health department? First thing I tell people is you got to understand the rules and regulations of your particular area because they do vary from state to state, city to city, and county to county. So understand those rules and regulations. The simplest thing for you to do is to download a sample inspection sheet. Then hopefully the agency that's putting out that sample inspection will also give you an idea of what those inspectors are looking for. But if you'll at least download the inspection sheet, that'll give you something to start. And if you already know the rules and regulations, then you'll recognize a lot of the things the health inspector is going to be looking for anyway. We'll talk about a couple of different ways that an inspection will happen. In Texas, for example, you drive to their inspection center and you're waiting in line with a whole bunch of other food trucks to be inspected. In Florida, as a different example, the health inspector will call you and then come to wherever you're located. So whatever your state does, you got to understand what that procedure is so that you can get it right from the get-go. Typically what you're going to do is make sure all the code equipment is on and then your hot water tank is also functional. Then you want to let the health inspector in. So however long it takes for those things to get to the right temperature is how much lead time you want to give yourself before the inspection happens. When the inspector gets there, they're going to ask for permission to get on your food truck or food trailer, and they're going to make a beeline straight for your hand wash sink. They're doing 2 things. They're going to set the example by washing their own hands, and then they're going to verify that the hot water gets hot and meets whatever specs your state has. Most likely it's either 100 degrees or 110 degrees, has to exceed those amounts, and then they're going to dry their hands and get ready to do the inspection. So that means your hand wash sink needs to be set up with soap and paper towels and then a place for them to throw away those paper towels. A covered trash can is what you want to have. Once they have their hands washed, they're going to set up whatever their procedure is for the inspection, whether it's pulling out a piece of paper and checking things off or going to some tablet and then following the prompts on the tablet. Our health inspector goes straight from hand washing into looking at the 3-compartment sink and then asking us how do we set up the sanitization. We use bleach because I'm not afraid of bleach. Bleach requires a certain type of litmus paper to verify the strength. So you have to have those papers to verify the strength, whether you're using bleach or quaternary ammonium. In either case, you want to make sure you have the right strips, and then you understand how full your sinks need to be with water, and then how much of the particular chemical you put in to give you the right parts per million that you need to prove that that particular sink is set up to properly sanitize your equipment and your smallwares. The health inspector may ask you to set the sink up and then watch you do that procedure with testing it, or they may just ask you, explain to me how do you do the sanitization sink. From there, they will move on to equipment. They'll start with the cold equipment, most likely, because that's where they're going to spend the most amount of time. So you don't want any food there. You just want them to open it up and go, okay, there's nothing in here. So the only temperature they can possibly take would be of the air within that cooler or that freezer. You want to make sure you have a thermometer in there that's there all the time to verify that it is at the correct temperature for your state, which is either going to be below 41 or below 40, depending upon which set of regulations your state uses. And then with the freezer, it needs to be 0 or less, and they'll give you a little bit of a span, may be able to go for -5 to +5. But in any case, you want to be able to prove that those 2 pieces of equipment work, and then the health inspector is going to verify that your thermometers are correct. So even though it may read 36 degrees in your cooler, they're still going to pull out their thermometer and verify that yours is correct. So again, no food in freezers or in refrigerators unless your specific health department requires it. From there, they're going to start looking at other equipment just for cleanliness and looking for crumbs and evidence of bugs, for example. So you want to make sure that you sweep underneath your equipment all the way back to the wall. I tell all my employees that my equipment does not contain anti-gravity devices, so that means it's sitting on a floor. And if it's sitting on the floor, your broom needs to go all the way back there and sweep underneath it. The same with your equipment sitting on countertops. It needs to be movable so that you can get up underneath it. I know a lot of people will bolt their equipment down, and that's fine, but you still need to be able to clean up underneath it. So whatever procedure it takes, you need to be able to get that done before you're ever inspected, and then do it throughout your operational times to keep underneath all your equipment clean. The health inspector may ask you questions about how you plan on cooking certain things. What they're doing is they're testing your knowledge about food safety. There are 3 ways that they want to prove that the person in charge has a grasp on food safety. One way is to ask you questions. That's the most uncomfortable way because there's 17 different types of questions they could ask to ascertain your food knowledge. The other 2 ways that you can prove that you understand food safety is, number 1, having taken and passed the test, so you have that food manager certification. Some states require it. Other states, for whatever dumb reason, don't. But in either case, I suggest that you take that test, because what it will do is prepare you for the pop quiz the health inspector may ask you when they get on your food truck. The third way you prove that you know how to protect the food that's on your food truck is you pass the critical points on that inspection. Now, since there's no food on the food truck, there's nothing for the inspector to test, so you can't pass that initial inspection that way. So they are going to quiz you because you have no food. Be prepared for that. If you take the food manager certification, you'll be fine. Just listen to the question. Don't try to anticipate them tripping you up, because they don't. They want you to answer the question so they can get through your inspection to move on to the next one. They have a busy day. They want you to answer things right the first time. So pay attention to the question. If you don't understand it, ask them, get some clarification, and then answer the question. Once you get past that part, then they're going to have some specifics for posters that need to be put up in your food truck, and this will vary from state to state. In Florida, we've got 3 that had to be put up. One is listing all the allergens. So, for example, sesame seeds was just added, so you got to make sure that your poster contains that updated allergen as well. So if your state has 9 allergens or 11 or whatever they have, you got to have them all listed. Most health departments will give you that as a PDF for free, and all you got to do is download it. And in our case, we downloaded it, printed it, and then we laminated it so it can just stick up on the wall. We also have to have some type of procedure that explains what happens if somebody throws up or somebody has a diarrhea problem. Now you're going, well, that's outside my food truck and I ain't worried about it. Health department don't care. They want you to be able to explain what's going to happen if you see that. And whether it's outside the food truck or inside the food truck, what is your procedure? How are you going to clean it up? Some states require you to have a little kit that cleans that up. Other states just ask you to have a procedure on how you're going to get it cleaned up so that you don't contaminate your food and you don't contaminate the employee and their uniform and that type of thing. So you have to have that explanation up. You also have to have up some type of poster about choking and what the procedure is to identify someone that's choking and how do you help them. Your state also may require you to have a policy that's signed by your employees that basically states that when the employee is sick with things that could contaminate food, they notify you and they know they cannot come to work. And that puts the pressure back on you that when an employee calls you up and gives you one of those symptoms that you know cannot let them work around food, you have to be strong enough as a manager to say, don't come into work today. Thank you for letting me know. You got to keep that food safe. And even if it means you run shorthanded, then you run shorthanded. Now, in our particular situation, the health inspector calls us up and says, hey, it's time for your annual inspection or your semi-annual inspection. When are you going to be open and where are you going to be? And then they make an appointment and effectively come to your business. Some states are not like that. They just randomly show up. Some inspectors, even within Florida, just randomly show up. If you're parked at the same location to where they feel reasonably confident that today's your time, they'll just show up. They will just show up. So don't expect that phone call, but it's nice if you do get it. Remember, the health inspectors are human beings. They are not out to trip you up and not let you open. They want you to open because that's more revenue for the state as far as taxes and the other permits and licenses you got to have. So they want you to open up so they can generate that revenue. The idea, though, is that you are well prepared. So again, make sure that you have downloaded the state's or your city or your county's inspection and then go through it and mentally and then go through it and you do your own self-inspection. How would you pass? If you don't understand some of the items that are on the inspection, call your health department, call your licensing agency and say, hey, I'm going to be up for an inspection here really soon, and I'm confused on this area. Can you help me to understand what you're looking for? And they'll help you. Because again, inspectors are just humans. They chose to be an inspector. This is their life's profession. They want to do a good job. And a good job for a health inspector is teaching you guys how to serve safe food, and then verifying that you are serving safe food. That's all their job is. So don't make it hard on them, and don't assume they're out to get you, because they're not. They are human beings just like you, and they want to do the best that they possibly can with their job. And then they want to move on to the next inspection they got to do. Because remember, they're talking to you for 15, 20, 30 minutes, but they probably got another 16, 17 people the rest of the day that they've got to get done, because tomorrow they're doing the exact same thing again. They've got another 16 to 20 people they've got to go inspect. So don't make it hard on them. Make it easy on them. Do the things right. And if you do mess up and they tell you, well, we got to come back and re-inspect you, then fix it and be ready for that next re-inspection, because they will come back and they will check you out. So again, don't be afraid of a health inspector. Don't be afraid of any inspection. Just do the best you can possibly do. And if you need help, call those folks up and ask them. I need to understand this section. So there's not a lot to do in an inspection. Every food truck should get 100 or an A grade or whatever the top grade is, because trust me, a food truck is easy to operate as far as food sanitization goes. Try doing a restaurant that seats 200 or 300 people, where you can't even see the whole kitchen. You have to walk around pieces of equipment to see the storage area, to go into the walk-in cooler, to go into the walk-in freezer. Those are challenges, especially when you have a team of 15 people working. All it takes is one to mess things up. Food truck's easy. Every food truck should get an A. Every food truck should get 100. Don't do the dumb mistakes. The way you can make sure you don't do the dumb mistakes is download that inspection sheet and then just follow it. Thank you guys so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding what we do enjoyable, please subscribe to the podcast. And if you really like what we do, then show us a little bit of support. There'll be a link in the description to make that happen. In the meantime, you guys have an awesome and most profitable week.